Hello and welcome to another installment of Stepping Through the Spec, or Spec Stepping as I call it. We are stepping alphabetically through the web API. Thought it would be a good way to share this knowledge. And also, to be honest with you, it's a great way for me to learn some more information because there's always more to learn in the world of IT, isn't there? So, anyway, we're going to talk about the background synchronization API today. In a previous video, I talked about the background fetch, utilized mostly for large files to do stuff in the background, and people can go to different tabs and stuff and not interrupt the download from a performance standpoint. This also sort of falls in that category. It definitely helps from a performance standpoint, but it's a little bit different way of going about the background information. This is typically used in like a PWA environment. In fact, if you scroll down, it actually says at the time of this writing, only available through progressive web apps. So I'm not going to go, that's a much larger topic, setting up a progressive web app and all that stuff. So I'm sort of mocking this a little bit. It does have some, you can access it a little bit through service workers, even though it's not a necessarily technically a progressive web app. So I'm going to be doing that because I want these to be short and quick. Now, again, note this is an experimental technology, so use it with caution in production and always check browser compatibility. So now, what this does, just like it says right here in this first paragraph, is it allows you to defer synchronizing the background. The example they use here is an email client, so you can have the ability to write an email even though you're not connected to the network, and you can then send that email, and it just kind of stays there in the browser, so to speak, and it will sync and send and receive once you have a connection again. Very helpful from a mobile perspective where there might be issues with lack of network connectivity in some rural areas, that sort of thing. The example I'm going to use is one of a podcast so that you can sync up podcast episodes when you're back connected. So there is a sync manager interface that we're going to get into. And they again have an example here about emails. Feel free, they usually have pretty decent examples to illustrate the concept. Excuse me, need a little sip of coffee here. And as you can go through this and kind of see how it works, how you listen, there's a sync event now combined with this. So let's go ahead and let's dive into the code here. First, I have the service worker. Let's get that out of the way. I don't want to focus on the service worker, but because we're focusing on the background sync, but we need a service worker for this to work. So we have the typical stuff where you install, activate, all that good stuff. And I'm adding an event listener here on the sync, where I'm listening for the tag, my sync tag, to do the background sync. So that method is right here. This uses IndexedDB. I'm not going to get into that in any great detail here, but that basically uses a local DB store and to store podcasts, what are completed, all that stuff, and completed products. So I will have this code shared here so you can grab it if you want to play with it. But the HTML is pretty simplistic. It just has the header with the image and all that. I'm not dealing with a lot of the um, uh, issues of pulling out of the database and having it display all that good stuff because I want to focus right here on this one. So first, we are testing if Sync Manager is available. Especially, I do that even with non-experimental APIs. I would recommend that just so you have a fallback, so you have a good experience for your end user. But basically, I'm checking to see if Sync Manager exists. Okay. And so if it exists, it's in the environment, I can use it. And then here, the service worker, I'm checking that that exists. And if it does capability exist, I can register it. Almost all browsers have that now. And then I'm registering it and activating it, all that good stuff. And then here is where I'm checking if it supports sync, and I'm actually registering that. So here in my registration, if the sync is there, I'm registering that my sync tag, which is equivalent to over here, right there. And so I'm registering that, and I'm would log out that that sync event is registered, or that it's failed, or that the background sync API is not supported. And then if it's, I have some errors and minor error handling there. So basically, let's go back here, and the service workers app activated. I do have the API available. Now, because this is not a PWA, if I go back, I don't see this sync event registered and all that stuff because it's not a PWA. If I had a PWA installed, it would show that. So the sync is not registering that. But what I also want to point out, just as a side note, before I wrap up the background sync API, is right here, service worker registration successful with scope registration. So I'm logging that out. This is something that I do, and I would recommend to particularly newer developers, is I use the log. Of course, you're going to read documents and all that stuff. I'm personally a hands-on learner, so I just log it out to the console, the object. That way I can actually take a look at what kinds of properties, what kinds of methods or functions are available in this. So I can see it's active, the background fetch. I can see if there's a sync. Here's sync manager. And I can even get into the prototype, and I can examine that whole thing. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll look at the documents, but I'll also look at it here in my browser so I can make that connection and see how to use it in my application. But returning back to background sync, basically what this will do again is if I'm doing podcasts, I can actually set this up in such a way that it will, if I'm offline, it won't sync. Perhaps I could show a message saying, hey, you're not connected. We'll sync up once you get back up and running. And then once they get back to the network, I'll sync it behind the scenes. The person can still go on and use it, my application, and not have to worry about it syncing up. I would provide some sort of notification to the end user in some shape or form. And then I could sync in the background, allow the user to continue on and use the application. So pretty handy. It's sort of performance, sort of user experience API. So if you're doing a PWA, to check this out. If you have any questions, let me know, and happy stepping.